All right, we're going to begin with the COVID pandemic, everybody, now colliding with the start of the school year in Florida as state and local leaders fight over masks in the classrooms.
And the debate comes as Florida shatters its record for new daily COVID cases for the third time this past week. NBC News reporter Vaughn Hilliard joins us now from Tallahassee. So, Vaughn, first of all, where do numbers stand right now there in Florida, and especially where you are right now in the state's capital?
Yeah, good morning, Joe and Yasmin. What you have are essentially the rising number of cases and the record here in Florida of more than 23 daily cases here this weekend, along with the start of school. Teachers are reporting here beginning today, the students on Wednesday. And what do you got? You got these two things coming to a head. This pandemic, this surge among the unvaccinated. And when we say the unvaccinated, that includes kids under the age of 12 who don't have access to the vaccine here at this point. And that is colliding here with a record number of hospitalizations in the state as well, breaking the record for the last 6 days. There are now more than 13,000 individuals in Florida hospitalized with COVID here. This is a tough situation as parents try to get their kids back to school and at the same time keep them safe.
So, Vaughn, Governor Ron DeSantis banned schools from putting mask mandates in place, saying if they do require masks, schools could actually lose state funding. Are there any school districts defying the governor? And how do families feel about the governor's decision?
Yeah, this is the tough political aspect of this year that impacts the health. Essentially, you have a governor who is implementing a policy that goes against the very science and the very effectiveness that we know that masks serve. He has barred school districts across Florida from requiring their students to wear masks. Now, Palm Beach County and Duval County, which encompasses the greater Jacksonville area, those two school districts, they have found this workaround where they're requiring masks, but parents can opt their students out, but they have to come in and explicitly sign that their student is opted out of wearing masks. But that is where most other school districts here are having to wrestle with the concerns of parents and the concerns of students here. I want to let you listen to one grandmother we talked to, Wendy Hackle here this weekend here, who wants the school district to put up a fight. The governor signed an executive order barring school districts from implementing mask mandates. What do you want the school districts to now do?
I want the school districts to stand up against the governor and make a stand based on the health and well-being of our children. That's really the only thing that's important. 0 children under 12 have been vaccinated. 0.
I talked to 2 other parents who don't intend to send their kids to school here in Leon County if, in fact, the school district doesn't require their students to wear masks.
Vaughn, I know you've been in Florida for a few days now, and you also spoke to a teacher there in Tallahassee. What did she say about how the mask debate is impacting the start of the school year?
I mean, essentially, you're dealing with a very vulnerable and impressionable population here when the height of what teachers are supposed to be doing is educating and teaching. And the teachers I talked to said that this gets in the way, it's distracting, and also it makes it difficult to talk about serious subjects like a pandemic and the transmissibility of a very contagious virus. I want to let you listen to part of conversation. You'll hear from Shari. She's a first grade teacher here in Leon County.
So I think that we just have to have conversations, rely on the science, and make decisions that are going to keep our children safe so that we can focus on learning, because that's really why we're all here. We have an opportunity to teach this amazing sense of civil responsibility to children. And if everybody's wearing a mask, I can take that off the table and I can focus on the teaching. And it's our job to make families feel as comfortable as we possibly can and do what we can to keep, and just remind them that we're keeping their kids safe to the best of our ability. So
Joe and Yasmin, more kids are already getting sick, and now they're heading into the classroom. And of course, we hope that somehow they are able to get an education without experiencing outbreaks in their own schools.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard reporting from Tallahassee. Vaughn, thank you.
All right, the moment is finally here for thousands of people living at the northern border. Canada is now open to fully vaccinated Americans after 17 months of being closed. But visitors will see big changes at the border, including more COVID documentation and longer wait lines. NBC News correspondent Kenneth Gibson is joining us now from the Ambassador Bridge in Detroit with more. Ken, it's good to see you this morning. Talk to us first about what travelers from the U.S. need to know before crossing into Canada, And what are some of the consequences here for violating these rules?
Yeah, Yasmin, good morning, and great to see you again as well. And here, listen, it's a good news. It's a big deal that finally vaccinated Americans will be able to cross over into Canada. But there are a few things that they need to know before they try to hit the road and try to hit the Ambassador Bridge or the many entry points or port of entries to Canada. First up, you have to be vaccinated for 14 days prior to your trip. You also have to have a negative COVID test result before 72 hours before you try to cross over. If you try to fake your COVID documentation or your vaccine documentation, you are facing thousands and thousands of dollars of fines. They're making you note that straight up. But the good news is, finally today, since after, I'd say about a year and a half, people will be able to cross the border, and a lot of people have already been starting to do so. We're here at a duty-free shop in Detroit, next to the Ambassador Bridge, and we've already met some people who have loved ones across Canada and said that they wanted to make sure that on day one they make that trip in order to see their loved ones. Tell you about the Ambassador Bridge right now. This crossing that you're seeing right there, that is the busiest border crossing in North America from a commercial standpoint. I want to bring in Randy Spader right now, who's the general manager of the Ambassador Bridge. And Randy, I do know that like border crossing, as far as from a commercial standpoint, hasn't really been impacted that much. What has been impacted, though?
Commercial traffic hasn't been impacted. It really is commuter traffic that's been mainly impacted. At first, when the borders were closed, 90 to 95% of the commuter traffic was affected. Essential crossers have been able to cross. That number has slowly increased up to about 75%. We're still down 75%. Commuter traffic at this time.
And these are people, a lot of people forget that they're, you can actually see Canada from here. Not to borrow a Sarah Palin line, but you literally can. And there are people who have homes over there. Like if you get on one of the dating apps, it's very likely your date is right there in Canada. And there are many people that we have met who have loved ones right across the water. So a lot of people are looking forward to being able to cross this border. What sort of economic impact would you say that it has had on businesses on both sides?
Oh, it's huge. The economic impact, I mean, they're our neighbors. They're just like another suburb is really what it is. Even though it's another country, yeah. Detroit and Windsor is intertwined with relationship, businesses, crossing back and forth on a regular basis.
All right, Randy Spader, general manager of the Ambassador Bridge. The border opened at midnight. We've seen some traffic going over. It's been slow going, but a lot of people were hesitant to get out there right away. But now they know that it's actually not that bad of a process. Yasmin.
Big day for the U.S.-Canadian border, and I guess dating as well, as Candace puts it. Thank you, Candace. Good to see you.
Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. Doctor, always good to have you with us. So, more cities are putting in mask mandates in place, even for people who are vaccinated. So we're looking for some recommendations here from you. When should vaccinated people wear a mask, do you think? And what types of masks best protect, especially right now against the Delta variant?
Good morning, Joe. Well, look, per the CDC's latest recommendation, if you are an individual who's living in an area that has either substantial or high transmission, and that means either 50 versus 100 new cases per 100,000 people tested, which actually makes up a real significant proportion of the country, as you may well know now. If you're a vaccinated person in an area like that, you should be masking up when you're indoors in a crowded place, such as grocery store or the gym or something like that, which is certainly a pivot from the recommendations from last May, where we experienced a little bit more liberation from that kind of guidance. In terms of what mask you wear, well, let me just say that not all masks are created equal. What we don't like to see are these single layer cloth masks, for example, a gator mask or something, which does very, very, very little to protect the wearer. It really just blocks those large droplets that can be expelled. But we know that the coronavirus is airborne and can be spread by these tiny little aerosols. The best mask to get is the N95 mask, which a year and a half ago, we were saying, please don't use because we need it for our medical professionals. We have plenty of supply of that now, as well as the KN95 mask, which is excellent. If you can't get your hands on one of those, and by the way, you really can at this point, at least a double layer cloth mask or a surgical mask, which provides a lot more protection for the wearer.
Yeah, we just stocked up on those N95s just recently here. Yeah. So epidemiologist Larry Brilliant, who helped eradicate smallpox, says the world is nowhere near the end of the pandemic. He also called the Delta variant, quote, maybe the most contagious virus ever. Now, some experts have been saying throughout the pandemic this could become another flu-like virus we grapple with every year. Is that looking like the case?
Absolutely. A year and a half ago, there were a lot of different predictions about what would happen and what the natural history of this, coronavirus would actually be. And I think we are going to see it fall into the category of its brother and sister viruses, other coronaviruses, which we know there are many of. And I think that is kind of where everyone needs to get their heads around, that this is not something that's going to go away, in 6 months or in 1 year. And I think, to Dr. Brilliant's point, which is really, really important, is that, only 15% of the world has been populated and inoculated, and greater than 100 countries have only inoculated about 5% of their population. So that really is something that's incredibly important to communicate to folks, because as more virus is able to be spread amongst people, we're going to see more mutations that will very, very likely, again, make us concerned about possible evasion of the vaccine's protectiveness and increased transmissibility again.
And Dr. Azar, while we have you, I wanted to bring up these images from UC San Diego, which shared two sets of x-rays. One shows the lungs of a vaccinated COVID patient versus the lungs of an unvaccinated one. Quickly, can you just kind of explain to us, what does this show?
Right. So essentially what we're seeing here is, actually, I'm not sure if these are labeled correctly, believe it or not. The one on my left shows a normal lung. The one on the right shows an individual who has COVID pneumonia. What you can see is that in the normal lung, the air spaces are black. And what we saw on the right image is someone who has been infected with COVID-19. Initially, of course, the portal of entry is the upper airway, and then it travels down into the lung and it causes pneumonia, and you kind of see that whiteout picture. And that is what we are, of course, hoping to avoid by vaccinating everybody.
All right. And yeah, you're right. Those should have been flipped there. Thank you so much, Dr. Azar. As always, we appreciate your expertise. All right, breaking overnight, a top aide to embattled New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is has resigned. In fact, Melissa DeRosa resigning as secretary to the governor less than a week after the state attorney general released a report alleging that Cuomo sexually harassed 11 women. The governor's political foundation is crumbling while he is on the brink of possible impeachment. Pressure could mount today after CBS News airs an interview with one of Governor Cuomo's accusers. She is known as Executive Assistant Number 1 in the report. Let's listen.
Why did you file that criminal complaint with the sheriff's office?
It was the right thing to do. The governor needs to be held accountable.
And just so I'm clear again, being held accountable to you means seeing the governor charged with a crime.
What he did to me was a crime. He broke the law.
Cuomo's attorney says the allegations are untrue. The governor has not been charged with any crime and denies any wrongdoing. Let's bring in NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns, joining us now from the New York Capitol in Albany. Dasha, good to see you this morning. Some major breaking news overnight, to say the least. Tell us what we know about Melissa DeRosa and her relationship specifically with the governor.
Hey, Yasmin, good morning. Yeah, a lot of developments over the weekend. As secretary to the governor, DeRosa held the most powerful appointed position in the state of New York. She is now stepping down from that role in a statement saying that it is the greatest honor of her life to serve the people of New York for the past 10 years, but saying that personally, the past 2 years have been emotionally and mentally trying. DeRosa held a lot of power in that office, and that is reflected in many ways in that attorney general's report. She is mentioned by name just about as many times as the governor himself. In that report, she is accused of helping to contribute to that toxic environment described by the attorney general's report, and accused of retaliating against at least one of the accusers who came out publicly with her allegations. DeRosa, though, for her part, denies any wrongdoing. Yasmin.
Dasha, we just heard from one of Cuomo's accusers, Brittany Camiso. She's actually filed a criminal complaint, as we talked about. What can you tell us about her complaint in Albany County?
Yeah, so the complaint itself has not been made public. What we do know, we know from the Attorney General's report, where she was identified as executive assistant number 1, and her allegations ranged from instances of inappropriate kissing and hugging to, Yasmin, perhaps the most egregious accusation, which is that she alleges the governor groped her, putting his hand under her blouse and grabbing her breast. The governor denies that incident ever happened and denies forcefully, as you've heard from his attorneys over the weekend, that denies any of these allegations in the report, Yasmin.
So we know, obviously, the governor is standing firm on this. As you mentioned, his attorney, Rita Glavin, giving a wide-ranging interview on CNN over the weekend, slamming this investigation into the governor. Want to take a listen to that?
And I'm just telling you, to say blaming the victim, for the governor to deny what she has claimed is not victim blaming. What I am doing is telling everybody that that report is shoddy, it is biased, it omits evidence, and it was an ambush. And they haven't shared all of their evidence.
A lot of folks not sharing her sentiment, to say the least. The governor's facing calls to resign from the highest offices in both New York and national politics. The president specifically, he may also face impeachment. What does this week have in store for the governor, Dasha?
Yasmin, you're familiar at this point, we all are, with that long list of lawmakers, officials, unions from the local to the state to the federal level calling on the governor to resign. But as I've been talking to lawmakers here, many of whom know how this governor functions, know what his posture is on things like this, they say they don't expect him to, and that means more and more eyes and a bigger and bigger spotlight here in Albany. This morning, the State Assembly Judiciary Committee is meeting at 9:30 a.m. They're going to be discussing next steps in this impeachment process. And Yasmin, I'll tell you, at this point, the bipartisan consensus on impeachment is overwhelming. They say they have the votes to make it happen. The question is just timeline, how this process is going to go, how quickly it's going to go, and we should have more information on that after this meeting today, Yasmin.
Yeah, all eyes on that Judiciary Committee meeting as things develop throughout the day. Dasha Burns, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Could the seemingly never-ending infrastructure week finally be over soon? Well, the battle over an infrastructure bill may actually come to a close now tomorrow. 68 senators, including 18 Republicans, voted overnight to advance the bipartisan legislation during a key procedural vote known as the motion to invoke cloture. It ended debate on the current bill, clearing the way for a final vote as soon as Tuesday. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Leanne Caldwell joins us now. So, Leanne, a lot happened last night on Capitol Hill. Now we have a key vote possibly tomorrow. Walk us through what happens next and how much support does this bill have across the aisle? Just how bipartisan is it?
Good morning, Joe. Well, it's significantly bipartisan. The fact that 18 Republican senators voted for this key procedural motion, there are 2 that were missing that would have voted for it as well. So that is a very big Republican number and shows where most of the Republican Party stands on this. Now, there are some, of course, who are opposed to it. Let's listen to how Senator Rick Scott of Florida put it yesterday on Fox News.
Nancy Pelosi has said all along she will not allow this bill to go through the House unless they get their $5.5 trillion reckless tax and spending bill done at the same time. So let's remember, if you help get this done, you're helping get the $5.5 trillion bill done.
So that is the message from some of the Republicans who are opposed to this legislation. But it's interesting because that's a different strategy than what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is taking, who is trying very hard to separate these 2 pieces of legislation. He said just last week, if you vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that does not mean you are supporting the $3.5 trillion human infrastructure that does come next. So what happens, as you said, Joe, the Senate could vote as early as tomorrow morning on final passage, and then Senate Democrats are moving immediately to that partisan infrastructure bill.
Leanne, on another topic, the Senate Judiciary Committee is interviewing ex-Justice Department officials about former President Trump's post-election pressure campaign. Here's Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin yesterday.
The president was looking for a green light from an attorney general. Bill Barr reached a point where he couldn't do it anymore, and Rosen stepped in, and he was not prepared to do it, and the president said, we'll find another one. Think about that for a second. The president is looking for the right person as Attorney General who will give him an answer of yes. And Richard Donahue was Deputy Attorney General. He witnessed all of this.
So what has this committee learned so far? Where is this inquiry heading?
Well, the committee spoke with the former acting Attorney General Rosen for 2 hours on Friday. They spoke with the Deputy Acting Attorney General Donahue for 7 hours on Saturday. And they're going to continue to investigate. They want to talk to Jeffrey Clark, who was the head of the Civil Division, who was on the president's side and trying to influence top leaders at the Department of Justice to call the election corrupt. So this investigation is not over. Senator Durbin also said he wants to talk to former Attorney General Bill Barr. Also, Joe, the Select Committee on January 6th over in the House, they are also investigating this too.
All right, Leanne Caldwell, busy week ahead. Thanks so much.
Yep.
All right, let's get to the historic wildfires burning out of control in Northern California. The destruction, it's staggering, matched only by the heartache of those who have lost their homes. NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas reports from the Dixie Fire, the second largest ever in the state's history, burning outside Greenville, California.
The Dixie Fire exploding to almost 500,000 acres, over twice the size of New York City. Driving more than 30,000 people out of their homes, the inferno has destroyed nearly 600 structures, threatening another 13,000. 4 firefighters injured during a desperate firefight to cut lines, the flames only 21% contained. California's governor surveying the remnants of the town of Greenville.
People are displaced and many will never return. And that's a tragedy. You're seeing here not just a loss of homes and housing, you're seeing entire communities wiped off the map.
The Myers family opened their doors to many fleeing the flames.
So he comes and hangs out,
sheltering displaced neighbors and offering food and water.
We're lucky so far because we're still here.
Bob Johns is one of the many now homeless.
It came through so fast as you just couldn't do anything but run. Just devastation just killed me.
He's grateful for the support.
Someone gave you this trailer after you lost yours. Right.
But rebuilding is going to be tough.
At my age, I think, how am I going to start over again? What do you feel when you see this happening?
This is literally about traditions, sense of place, culture, lifestyles, identity, memories about kids and families.
An uncertain future and another relentless fire season.
Now, as you can see, the smoke is lifting, which allows air support to return because of the improved visibility, but it also means a more active fire behavior. Joe, Yasmin?
Guad Venegas reporting from Greenville, California. Thank you, Guad.
Let's get a check on your morning news now weather.
Good morning, Bill Cairns. Good to see you, my friend.
Good morning. Yeah, it's an interesting Monday around the country. We know we got the fire, obviously. We're starting to get into the peak of the tropical season, so you know that's not going to stay quiet like it's been the last month. And then it just is relentlessly hot in many areas of the country. But let's start first with that Dixie Fire forecast. Overnight, it grew another like 16,000 acres. It is now the second biggest fire officially in California history, so that's pretty crazy. Temperatures today for the firefighting efforts, 90 degrees. The breeze isn't too bad. You have to remember, this fire is still only 15% contained. And the air quality, a lot of it because of that fire, was just brutal this weekend, all through the Rockies. Colorado, you see some of the pictures of people, taking pictures of what are normally like historic monuments, and you can barely even see them. So air quality is still very unhealthy there, from Albuquerque to Denver to Casper to Yellowstone, and a good section of Idaho, too. And that's the 35th consecutive day with poor air quality in a row for Denver. How brutal is that? And here's the smoke forecast. You can see all the white is where the smoke is going to be heading and drifting. So watch out, Omaha, eventually into the Midwest as we get into Wednesday. Wherever the jet stream winds take it is where that smoke will go. And the other story, 27 million people at risk. It is hot. It is humid in the middle of the country. And guys, how about this? We'll talk about this towards the end of the week. We are going to see another record-breaking heat wave in the Pacific Northwest. Some areas will be 100 to 110 degrees. Not as horrible as the one earlier in the summer, but you can't believe we're going to do it again.
They're not used to that there, so all right. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.